gotta turn on the sound.
I think it's on. Doesn't look like it.
Nope.
Got it?
Oh, I did have it on. Did you see the red light come on?
No. Oh, there it goes. There we go.
All right. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Cami Sabin. I'm the Public Information Officer, one of the Public Information Officers for Brigham City. We want to thank the media for being here today in beautiful Brigham City, and we also extend a welcome to the public who are joining us online. We're here today to talk about the move to Weber 911 dispatch by 7 Box Elder agencies. Behind me, let me introduce the people that are behind me here. To my right is Scott Hansey. He's the chief of Perry. Sorry, I've got them all written down, but I was looking at the wrong line. Scott Hansey is the chief of Perry City Police Department. Next to him is Dustin Cordova. He's the chief of Tremont and Garland Police Department. Next to him, right behind me, is Chad Reyes. He's the chief of Brigham City Police Department. Then we have Brandon Thueson. He's the chief of Brigham City Fire Department. And Jeff Jarrow, who is the police of Garland Fire Department. Tremont Fire Department. We also have in the audience the chief of Garland's Fire Department, who is Steve Harrington. And then we also have Brian Moser, the chief of Perry City EMS. We will start with Chief Reyes. He's going to give a statement explaining why we are moving our dispatch services to Weber 911. He's going to share some examples and some concerns and hopefully address some concerns. And then he will take questions, and then that'll pretty much be it. So you'll have time to ask questions of Chief Reyes.
So, like Cami said, first I just want to thank the media for being here on such short notice and providing us a conduit to address our citizens of our respective cities and kind of get some information out there. So thank you again for being here. Last night, Box Elder County Sheriff Kevin Potter posted on Facebook a statement about Brigham City and the other local agencies here today who are moving dispatch services to Weber 911. While we appreciate that Sheriff Potter is passionate in his statement, several points he made lack context and complete information, and we're here to provide you that complete information today. Transparency is very important to us, to all of us standing up here, which is why we wanted to invite the press to our city council chambers to have a two-way dialogue with you and answer the hard questions that you might have versus just coming up with a refined proofread post and putting it on a social media forum and then closing comments so no one can have any feedback. There's an old saying that applies very well here, and that saying is, before you start to get loud, you better first make sure that you're right. We know this decision comes at the end of an emotional time for our communities, but at least for Brigham City, I can't speak for the other agencies up here, the events of August 17th did not initiate this change. Brigham City Fire Chief Brandon Thueson, who's up here, and myself have been asking for change at Box Elder Communications Center since we started here, 4 years for me and 5 years for Chief Thueson. We value the relationships that we have with other agencies in the county, but we need to prioritize public safety over our egos and relationships with those agencies. I'm going to share with you an example of just how this switch to Weber 911 increases and enhances the public safety for our citizens, and that example is a 911 call that my agency was dispatched on about 2 months ago. It was a 911 hang-up, and so dispatch didn't get a lot of complete information, but they did relay to us that it sounded like a domestic was occurring in the background, so some sort of an assault or an argument was occurring. Dispatch sent my officers to an address that they retrieved not from anything more than a GPS location that the cell phone that called into that center was calling on. And so my officers respond to the address that they're sent to, and it's late in the evening, and they knock on the door. And then they knock on the door some more. And they knock on the door some more. And eventually, an elderly couple answers. And through an investigation and some questioning of this elderly couple, my officers determined that no crime is occurring there. Everything is fine. And so one of my sergeants did what dispatch should have done from the start. And he ran that phone number through our RMS system, through our record system. And what he uncovered in searching that number was that number actually was associated with a person who lived just across the street in an apartment complex. And what else he found was that number was associated with several 911 calls and dispatch incidents that occurred. So my officers drive across the street, they make contact, and they confirm that that's where the call came from. And luckily, fortunately, there wasn't really a crime that occurred. There was a dispute, but it wasn't a crime, and we didn't have a victim injured or anything like that. But if you can just imagine for a second the potential for a crime like that to be something, to be a victim getting injured and assaulted, and my officers are wasting precious minutes disturbing an elderly couple in the middle of the night while a victim continues to be assaulted. Dispatch should have run that number, and they would have sent my officers to that address immediately rather than wasting their time by sending them to an address across the street to wake up an elderly couple. The final straw, as I mentioned, the tragedy of August 17th wasn't the final straw for us. What the final straw was for Brigham City specifically was, and the event that really pushed Mayor Bott forward with this change and our elected body forward with this change, was the data breach experienced by Box Elder County in early August of last year. Box Elder's dispatch center operated off pen and paper for nearly 2 weeks, even though other area dispatch centers offered to take on those responsibilities for them. This insistence that we regress 50 years put our first responders at risk and our citizens at risk. Let me address a couple concerns that have come up from the public regarding this change. First, I want to make this clear. Response times will not be longer. The state of Utah recently rolled out a statewide CAD-to-CAD system, and CAD means computer-aided dispatch. What this CAD-to-CAD system does for us is ensure that when a citizen makes a 911 call and the dispatcher who answers actually needs to transfer that caller to another dispatch center, it's a simple click of a button. All that information that the initial dispatch center has collected will populate immediately on the other dispatch center. So for example, someone calls 911 and they get Weber dispatch, but they actually need Box Elder dispatch. The Weber dispatcher is still going to take that call. They're still going to enter all of the critical information, and it's going to automatically populate in Box Elder County's dispatch center. There's no additional need for a phone call. There's no need to transfer a caller, and the same information is going to populate on the other screen of the other dispatch center. There's no delay. Another concern that's been stated is that officers from different departments won't be able to communicate with one another. Salt Lake County has 3 dispatch centers within that one county. Davis County has multiple dispatch centers within their one county. Frequently, separate agencies respond to each other's calls and assist each other, and all it requires is a fraction of a second to turn a knob on your radio and change channels. It's also relevant that in extremely dynamic and chaotic situations, dispatch centers can patch channels together so an officer doesn't even need to change a channel. They just patch, if the event is occurring on a Weber channel, they patch Weber to Box Elder, and it's that simple. Using tragedies such as Uvalde, Columbine, and 9/11 to make a point about fragmented communications is disingenuous and not representative of communications between law enforcement agencies in Utah. What it is fear-mongering. Utah law has, for a long time, required interoperability. A St. George officer's radio works in Brigham just as well as it works in St. George. During the tragedy of Uvalde, to my knowledge, Texas did not have that required interoperability. And so, as is mentioned, the failure findings for the Uvalde tragedy are available to everybody online. The small piece of that is referred to in some of the concerns that have been brought up to us, again, it's fear-mongering. That didn't exist in Texas, it does in Utah, and it has existed in Utah as far back as 2007. And that's another tragedy another tragic example that I want to share with you that I have firsthand knowledge of. In 2007, we had a very sad and again tragic incident that occurred at Trolley Square. During that time, I was a deputy with Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office, and I was dispatched to respond to that call. I responded with agencies from all over that area, including the county to the south and the county to the north. When I arrived, I was tasked with clearing part of that mall, and I did so with 2 other officers from different agencies who happened to be from different dispatch centers. Their primary channel was a different dispatch center. And I can tell you, from my experience in that incident, the mission was completed. Unfortunately, it had a tragic end, but we were able to communicate with each other, and this idea that we can't talk is completely baseless. Sheriff Potter said in his statement that proper procedure requires us to involve our local communication center based on documented evidence and past experiences rather than personal opinions and rumors. We couldn't agree more. The documented evidence and the experience of our law enforcement officers and first responders is exactly why we are moving to Weber 911. We strongly believe that this move is the best decision for our communities, and we are grateful to the elected officials of Brigham City, Tremonton, Garland, and Perry for recognizing the importance of upholding the highest standards for the safety of our first responders and the public that we serve. In his statement, Sheriff Potter talks about the need for unity and communication. He claims he prioritizes our citizens and our first responders' safety. The 7 agencies making this decision to transition to Weber 911 are setting aside our egos, and we're taking action to prove that improved public safety is our priority by switching to Weber 911. We would also prefer to work from one unified communication center. And so we invite all the agencies, public safety agencies in Box Elder County, to make their actions match their words and prove their citizens' safety is their priority by joining us at Weber 911. Thank you, and I'll take questions.
Was there ever an effort to sort of, by the sheriff or by on the city's ends, to sort of fix the issues and the problems that had been noted?
You know, since we have announced our switch to Weber, there has been a noticeable effort to make some advancements and improvements, but I can speak for my agency, it's not good enough. And in my assessment, no matter what Box Elder Communication Center does to improve and advance their policies and procedures, they're never going to match the capacity that's available to us or the technology that's available to us at Weber Dispatch Center. And for an example of that is Box Elder Communication Center's minimum staffing is 2 dispatchers. Weber's is 13. So at any one time, there's 13 dispatchers on in Weber versus 2 in Box Elder County. So.
Chief, when it comes to, someone in Brigham City or anywhere calling 911, will they see a difference? Will they see a change when it comes to changing dispatch centers?
The difference that they'll see is probably a quicker response time from us. It's preliminary. We haven't made the switch yet, but we're anticipating that our response times are going to go down and the level of service that our citizens receive is going to go up.
And do you know when that switch will fully happen?
February 2nd is the target date.
And Chief, while the conversation did not start because of the Tremonton shooting, in my respects to your police staff and city that has dealt with that, can you please provide more details as to what happened during that dispatch call? And was that the final straw?
As I mentioned, it wasn't the final straw for Brigham City, and frankly, with respect, we're going to try and steer away from the tragedy that occurred in Tremonton, just out of respect for the families and for the active criminal case that is proceeding. Any other questions?
What do you want to say to people who may be concerned about, what is this going to mean for them?
I tried to address that in some of the talking points that I had here, but again, there's not going to be a delay in response time. There's not going to be the inability to communicate with deputies from Box Elder County or officers from agencies that aren't making the switch. I have personally experienced, and so has Chief Cordova, we've come from larger agencies in urban areas that have multiple dispatch centers. We've seen this firsthand. I did 22 years in Salt Lake County. And the scare tactics being employed here to try and tell our citizens that this is a mistake and it's going to be detrimental to their safety is just not true.
Chief, will this bring any tax implications, any funding implications for residents, any increases that way?
Honestly and candidly, yes. It is more expensive for us to use the services of Weber 911 versus those at Box Elder County. But one other misperception, without using the word lie, that has been perpetuated is that Box Elder Communication Center was free. It is not free. Our taxpayers pay property tax. It's funded by the county, but Brigham City residents and Tremont City residents and Garland City residents and Perry City residents all pay property tax to Box Elder County, which helps fund that center. In addition to that, we have been told multiple times that it's going to go up. The cost is going to go up. My city has budgeted for 2 years a $250,000 bill that was supposed to come from Box Elder Communication Center that was never sent to us. So, and the cost, to go back to your question, the cost for us to go to Weber is about $100,000 more. It's $90,000 more for us to do that versus stay with Box Elder. Yes, Nelson.
Can you go over again the request that you had of Box Elder Dispatch and what they could have changed that may have prevented all of this?
Yeah, running history, the example that I provided of the 911 hang-up call, we've asked repeatedly for them to run history, not only on phone numbers, but on addresses, to give us, to kind of do a pre-arrival investigation before my officers or my firefighters or first responders arrive, to give us the best advantage in going in and knowing what we're going into before we get there. That's one example, but there are multiple other examples. Fire's examples of the requests that they've made over the years for improvement are a lot different than ours, but specifically for law enforcement, that's one of the major ones that we've asked.
There's something about sending 2 officers to domestics as well.
Yeah, their dispatch procedure, we've made it a requirement in our SOPs and our policy that certain types of calls require 2 officers to be dispatched, not just 1 officer and hope that someone clears and backs. And so that's another change, at least for a public safety enhancement for our first responders that'll occur with Weber 911.
Chief, you mentioned that in the recent days or recent time lapse that they have made some changes, but it wasn't enough. Can you please elaborate on those changes?
So that 911 call, hang-up call example that I provided to you of the elderly couple, that occurred even after we informed them that we were moving to Weber 911. So those issues persist, and it's not just one, not just that example, but there are several issues that persist, and so we are 100% confident that we're making the right decision by moving to Weber 911.
Chief, do you think with this change, from the post to speaking about it to the actual change itself, does that have an impact on culture, on morale for officers in different departments and working together going forward?
For our departments, I can speak for that. We had a joint training here last night where Weber 911 came in and kind of gave us a presentation of some of the nuances that'll be different at their center versus what we're currently on. And I'll tell you that, frankly, that was met with applause. A lot of the changes that were, the differences that were highlighted for our officers, and it was all the agencies that were here last night, was met with applause. And with regard to the morale and the culture of our department and other agencies, our departments and other agencies that make the decision to remain with Box Elder Communication, I can't really speak for them, but what I can tell you is that it has always been my promise, and I know that I'm speaking for Chief Cordova and Chief Hansey here too, we will never let another officer fight alone. And we have made several offers, and we've made that statement several times to all the other agency chiefs here, and that promise doesn't change. If another officer in a jurisdiction that remains with Box Elder County needs help, we're not going to let them fight alone. Any other questions? Again, thank you for being here. I know it's short notice. We felt like this was a priority for us to try and address, and it does. You guys do provide us a conduit to our citizens to get our message out and our reason why, and we appreciate the hard questions that you asked, and thank you. Okay.
Thank you. To those of you who came, media representatives will be happy to email you a text, like a transcript of the statement that he gave at the beginning. And if you have any questions, I will be here for a little bit to respond to those. But yes, thank you for coming.